Shocking news at the US Open. Carlos Alcaraz out in round 2 to Botic Van der Zandschulp. This is our post-match reaction.
What is going on? I cannot believe it. Welcome back, tennis fans. Carlos Alcaraz out of the US Open. The guy who has just won the last 2 slams, got to the final of the Olympics, and has lost early on against an opponent who was close to retirement. Botic Van der Zandschulp has not played well all year. He's not looked like a contender for any tournament. I think I had him going out in the opening round to Shapovalov. He then won that match and has just beaten Carlos Alcaraz, not in 5 sets after a 6-hour match, but in straight sets. And I think this is probably one of the biggest upsets I've ever seen since we've done the podcast. Somewhat comes to mind is Denis Istomin against Novak Djokovic. We've had, obviously, Soderling against Rafael Nadal. Some high-profile ones, but these were a little bit before we started the podcast. Since we've started, I cannot recall a bigger one than this, and that is the Roland Garros and Wimbledon champion, Carlos Alcaraz. He was a winner at the US Open in 2022, out in the second round to Botic Van der Zandschulp, 6-1, 7-5, 6-4. Jose put that Carlos was poor, but Botic was absolutely unreal for 2 hours, 20 minutes. The crowd in shock. It's not just the crowd. Carlos Alcaraz was also in shock. Botic was in shock as well. He didn't even celebrate after winning the match. And it come at a time when we were all asleep in the UK. I woke up to your phone call ringing in my ear, and it was warranted because the news is so severe. What went wrong for Carlos Alcaraz, Ben?
I mean, just to start off, like in the UK, when you wake up, this what I thought was going to be a run-of-the-mill matchup. I thought I was going to wake up, I'd see the highlights there. It said it was a nice short highlight, so I was like, oh, it's probably an Alcaraz straight sets win. And then it flicked. It went 1 set down. I was like, probably a 4-set win, 2 sets down. I was like, wow, he comes back and wins in 5.
Did you not know the result before you watched the
highlight? No, I never do. I always wake up and then I watch the highlights before knowing the results. And I was like, oh my word. I was like, he's 2 sets down. And then I just saw him just get cleaned up. Like with ease, it seemed, by Botic. And I was like, what has happened there? He seemed like ice cold on the court today, Botic Van der Zandschulp. Played inspired tennis, but something just wasn't clicking for Carlos Alcaraz. He didn't have that extra level to be able to like raise it in the 3rd set. And I think Botic said it best in his post-match press conference. He said, I was just able to break him like early in all the sets. And I think it really unsettled him. And after that, he was just able to just keep on playing his game. He played fantastic. You got to say that as well. I mean, it wasn't just Alcaraz playing badly. He came up against somebody who hasn't, like you said, played well all year. But now, I'm just like in shock. Literally, it's like the most shocking news. I expected other players to suffer like this. I probably even expected Jannik Sinner to suffer more than I expected Carlos Alcaraz. And I think we've maybe put like a curse on Alcaraz. I think we both had him winning the tournament, didn't we, the US Open?
Yeah, I think that's where we've gone wrong. Typical, isn't it, Game to Love? We both picked him and he went out probably because of that. So that's not helped the cause at all. But for sure, I feel like even us both picking him, for him to go out in the second round is still insane. And I'm totally in shock. And I think now the best thing to speak about is, why do you think something like this has happened? As Jose's put out, it's the first time since 1999 that 0 Spanish players into the 3rd round. Rafael Nadal was always consistently pushing through the draw. And now without Rafa there, Carlos Alcaraz losing early, it's not great for Spanish tennis for sure. But I think they've won enough with all the football recently anyway, so we can leave them. But yeah, what went wrong for Carlos Alcaraz? I think it's a few things. And one of the big ones is just the tennis calendar as a whole. He did speak about in his post-match interview, it's a long season. He's gone deep in the 3 big tournaments leading up to this. So Wimbledon, he won. Roland Garros before that, he won. then went to the Olympics, which is a different schedule than usual. You wouldn't usually play the Olympics. Went all the way to the final against Novak Djokovic. And that was a final I was anticipating and expecting him to win. He was looking brilliant. He was looking better than Djokovic leading up to that match. He was the bookie's favourite. And Djokovic beat him quite comfortably and quite well. I think that really knocked the stuffing out of his season. And I'm going to put this loss at the hands of Novak Djokovic. I think some of the fans are saying this. I think he's unsettled his season. He's got in his head, and he's completely rattled Carlos Alcaraz, should I say? And from that moment, he's not looked the same player.
Is it another case? Whoa! Is it another case of first he takes your legs, then he takes your soul? Has Carlos Alcaraz's soul been sucked out of him after that Olympic final? I mean, he probably thought, I've won Roland Garros. I'm pursuing to win this one.
He was a big favourite. I think he went into that match thinking he can win, and Djokovic bullied him. And
he walloped
the way
Djokovic
he lost
at Wimbledon.
Yeah, no, I honestly put a lot of emphasis on that match and that result having the same causing what's happened here today. And Djokovic has had his number and done Carlos Alcaraz over. There's no way he should be losing this match. Like you say, credit to Botic Van der Zandschulp. I love that little half volley shot he did. That was brilliant.
Amazing.
I don't know how he managed some of the shots. And you've got to remember one thing about Botic is a few years ago, maybe a bit longer, maybe 3 years ago, he was a top player. And what I say by that is when he's firing on a hard court, I would say he's a top 10 player in the world. So it's not
second
like
week of a slam,
Yeah, it's not a massive shock in terms of who's been able to do it. It's just the fact that we've not seen that from him, and he was close to retiring. Carlos said, well, I felt...
apologies. I just thought I'd show you this one just because you were talking about it. He said it's... Go on. It's back-to-back main draw wins for the first tournament this year. I mean, it's crazy that that's the match that he's managed to do it in. Let's go back to this comment from Carlos after the match.
He said, well, I've felt like that in a few matches. After every match I felt like that, I always say the same. I have to learn about it. I have to think about it. What I'm thinking right now is I'm not changing. That's the problem. If I'm going to sit here after matches where I felt like that and I couldn't deal with it, I couldn't change the match, or I couldn't pick myself up a little bit, but I'm never going to change. It's going to be really tough if I want to improve. I can't say much about it. And this is him obviously being asked, you said you didn't know what to do in the match. Have you ever felt like that before on a court? He just didn't have any ideas. I don't think he was hitting hard enough. I don't think he was aggressive enough. And he got punished big time against a really, really good player. There was another tweet I wanted to speak about.
While you're looking for that, I'll go through another comment that he answered. He said, did he not feel 100%? It's still always difficult straight after a match as well, because you don't want to disrespect your opponent by saying that it was all about you and not about them as well. But he said he did play really good tennis, and that he gave him his plaudits, which is really good from Alcaraz to actually acknowledge. He didn't just come in and just say, "Oh, it was just me. I just was terrible today." It was Botic Van der Zandschulp playing well. He said that he just didn't know how to increase his level. I think that was the clear thing in that match. He didn't know how to bring out the other level that we've seen at the US Open from Alcaraz, the one that goes to the 5-set depths. It just wasn't there. And does it make it a bit more like human, like what he's able to do on a tennis court now? We obviously see the likes of Djokovic performing at a high level all the time at slams. When he has an off match like he had against Sinner at the Australian Open, people are like, whoa, what happened to him? Well, you see, it happens to everybody. And I think this is another case of him learning. Like we forget how young he is as well. You got to remember, there's a lot of weight on his shoulders at like a very, very young stage of his career. He's got a few slams under his belt, and he's won 2 this year already. That would be enough for a lot of people's careers. And he's pushing to try and get 3 slams in a year.
In a row. And I think it's definitely an element of fatigue, mentally and physically. Mental being more than the physical one, for sure. Because I think he's physically extremely fit. I think losing to Djokovic at the Olympics and the way he did in a big match has mentally taken the stuff out of him, and he struggled to bounce back in time for this US Open without much time rest. I think he had a few days and he was straight back on the hard courts again. It's going to be tough. And what's interesting, I'm going to send you a tweet now because he's got a very busy schedule until the end of the year. And it's something to consider. So he's got Davis Cup finals. He's then got Laver Cup, which could be obviously a big moment with Rafael Nadal maybe retiring at the Laver Cup like Federer did. Who knows?
Maybe.
Hope not, because I think he did say he was going to play Roland Garros next year. But let's wait and see. He's got Beijing, Shanghai. You've got the Saudi Arabia exhibition. And I'm assuming that's the one with all the money where he probably has to be there.
The kings of tennis, apparently. Isn't it?
You got Paris Bercy, ATP finals, and then the Davis Cup finals if qualified. So a lot going on for Carlos Alcaraz. Do you think he's going to pull out of some of these events? And do you think that's the sensible thing to do at this stage of the season? Do you think he should select and handpick a few of them?
I think he's going to have to. I feel this time of the year, I know that we've spoken about it in the past couple of years, is he seems to fall off a little bit towards the end of the year. And I think if he wants a really good showing at the ATP finals, then it's probably in his best interest to maybe not play Beijing. Maybe, I don't know, he's going to have to play the Saudi one because he's obviously signed up to it already. There's a lot of money on the table there, and it's probably something for the future. And then there's probably a bit of a gap to Paris Bercy, I reckon. I reckon if he can drop one of those, I reckon Beijing or Shanghai, he should be all right. He may even drop both of them. I don't know.
Or both. I think that would be a sensible thing. Have some real extended period of rest for him. And that may help him. Like you say, he doesn't do well towards the end of the year. And something to consider is it's not that much rest between then the last match of the Davis Cup to then the Australian Open. With the new year starting, it'll all come around so quickly. He doesn't want to start a season completely dead with no energy at all. So it's a lot of things to consider for Carlos Alcaraz. And after today's showing, I think the tennis world are in complete and utter shock. I just really didn't think it was going to happen.
No, neither me. Let us know your thoughts about the result in the comments section below. I'm sure a lot of Djokovic fans will be in there today, and a lot of people who've watched our draw preview as well. They'll be jumping in. Send us some hate if you really want to, or just laugh at us. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there with a similar pick, and we've got egg on our face right now. What can we say? But there's part of me deep down inside sort of happy for Novak Djokovic at the moment, and there's one less person to have to get past to get to number 25. But Jannik Sinner's still in the draw. He'll be happy. And
happier than Djokovic because Djokovic would only play in the final. The two bigger winners than Djokovic, I'd say, are both Daniel Medvedev and Jannik Sinner because they're on the same half as them. Potentially them two face off, and then I think they've got a free reign to the final. So one less match for them, one less really tough match. And let's wait and see what happens. The last reaction I just wanted to bring up then was that of Nick Kyrgios. I don't know if you've got it there. And he had only 2 words to say regarding this one. He's been bigging up his arms all week. He's been speaking to him in the post-match. And this is what he had to say after the match. He just said, "Holy smoke." So he was as shocked as all of us were. But anyway, let's wrap it up there. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this short reaction / podcast of Carlos Alcaraz going out at the US Open. If you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and we'll bring you a day 3. Is it day 3, Ron?
Day 4.
Day 4 roundup later on today. Probably in a few hours' time, we'll bring you speaking about all of the other matches, and Ben can cry about Naomi Osaka. See you guys there.
That's it. See ya.